The Exorcist Believer. Is it really that bad? We're here to analyze the plot and discuss the film's ideas borrowed from the Dead Sea Scrolls and a mistranslated Bible verse. So what did they get wrong, and is this movie still worth watching? We're here to talk about it.
With legacy sequels, you want the hero to show up and beat the demon. The original heroes in the original movie are dead.
So at the beginning of the film, one of the staples of the Exorcist franchise is to introduce a main character in a faith crisis. So here we have Victor. Do one of you guys want to explain the conundrum that he's in?
So at the beginning of the movie, Victor and his wife, who is expecting, are in Haiti. Now, first off, I'm not sure why she's traveling when she's that pregnant, but I don't judge. Anyway, so they're walking around Haiti, and the woman is a very spiritual person. You can tell she's kind of looking at different churches. She gets met by this voodoo priestess and says, hey, can I bless your baby? And, so she's visiting all these religious places while her husband, who's a photographer, he's obviously not dealing with religion or spirituality. He doesn't feel that as much as she does, so he kind of stays away from it and everything like that. As I mentioned, she meets a voodoo priestess. This priestess puts a blessing on the baby, rubs her stomach in oils and blesses the baby and says this will protect the baby. Not long after, there's a big earthquake in Haiti and buildings are collapsing. Chaos ensues. Victor goes running into the building that his wife was in and finds her on a collapsed stairwell. A few minutes later at the hospital, the doctor gives the husband basically an ultimatum. Unfortunately, the injuries are so bad we can only save the mother or the daughter, and he has to make a decision. And that kind of is how the movie starts, basically.
Yeah, so that conundrum is going to come back in the climax of the film. So it's important, but we've got our typical character in a faith crisis. Because his wife dies, he no longer believes in a god or a higher power, which is kind of interesting, though, because didn't the blessing, like for all he knows, didn't it work because his daughter was protected, right?
Technically.
Yeah. And they even make mention of that a little bit later in the film with the neighbor when he's questioning faith and all that stuff. She even says, like, well, if you don't mind me saying this, but I believe that your daughter is a miracle, because she survived and she lived. But yeah.
Yeah, so why did he lose his faith then? I mean, I understand that would be difficult for anybody, but...
I don't think he lost anything. I don't think he had it.
I don't think he had it to begin with.
I mean, they actually have a conversation at the beginning of it where he mentions that, it's not like he's ridiculing her for believing or anything like that. I think he just mentioned, well, honey, I'm not into that, and kind of leaves it at that. So the fact that he wasn't a believer and then this happened, the worst thing that could ever happen to a married man, I think that just proves to him more, because it's like, well, if there were a God, why would he do this? Why would he cause pain? Why would he cause suffering, sadness, and all this? So yeah, I think that more just resolved his feelings that he doesn't believe, and now he truly doesn't believe more.
Yeah, so it's the problem of evil. Why does God allow evil in the world? And how could God exist when there's so much pain and suffering? That theme was in one of the other Exorcist movies, Dominion. It is Dominion, which has a similar arc, I think.
That whole first scene in Haiti and everything, that was a very cool intro.
Yeah.
So the movie's about to start, and I turned to Drew and I said, God, I hope this doesn't suck. That's all I wanted. Right. And as soon as the movie hits, it's two dogs going at it.
Just like the original.
Just like the original. So immediately I'm like, oh no. I look straight at Drew and I'm like, oh no. But I immediately changed my mind and got excited because they shot this perfectly. This was an Exorcist movie when it started at the beginning. The way the cuts were, the way, there was no music. There wasn't a lot of sound. It was just kind of background noise, but the background noise was almost creepy. Mm-hmm. You knew you were in a horror movie, even though they were in a beautiful place taking pictures and smiling. the way everything was going, it was like, oh,
Yeah. And
this is dark.
yeah, and I know we're going to get into this, but like I thought that again, I thought the beginning was really, really well done, and I thought the first half of this movie was really well done. I thought it had a lot of suspense and it kept you on the edge of your seat. And the two actresses who played the possessed girls were outstanding.
Yeah,
I mean, they're creepy, and it was great. It's the second half where the wheels kind of fall off a little bit, and
we'll get to that.
And we'll end up getting to it. So, but no, I agree with Doug. I thought the first part was.
I do want to point that
awesome.
out. Yeah, that first part was done. I mean, I don't think you could have done it better.
No, it was really, really well done.
Kudos to whoever edited that, whoever came up with that. You started an Exorcist movie the way an Exorcist movie should start.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying an exorcism movie. I'm saying from this world, you started it perfect. So right off the bat, I'm excited. This is starting perfectly. So now we can move on.
Yeah, now we get into my wheelhouse a little bit, because I'm always interested in the theology. So I was looking at when the two girls get possessed, they try to contact Angela's mom, who has died, right?
Right.
And I was interested. I'm like, oh, I know where they got this idea from. You guys know what it comes from?
No
idea. And that might have helped the movie a little bit if they explained what happened.
They try to. They bring in Catherine's mom and they explain something the girls did opened them up to become possessed, right? Well,
something
that idea does come from
that.
Yeah, that idea does come from the Bible. And the explanation, okay, there's a story in 1 Samuel 28. It's called The Witch of Endor. King Saul goes to this medium and he's trying to get her to summon up the dead prophet Samuel. And when he does, or when the witch actually summons up Samuel, she's successful and she freaks out. And Saul says, "What did you see?" And she says, in English, it says, "I saw a god." Well, in Hebrew, it says, "I saw gods," plural. Now, their word for gods didn't mean God like we think of it. It meant any spiritual being. So an angel, a demon. So the point is, when she summoned up the person that Saul wanted to talk to from the dead, well, there were other spiritual beings around, like other demons. So the whole concept is like, you shouldn't try to contact the dead because you don't really know who's on the other end of the line. Like, you don't know if it's the person you thought you were trying to contact or not.
They probably just have like one or two payphones up there at most.
Yeah, and they got a party line.
It's not like, they're not, they don't have individual cell phones or anything like that. And obviously no one's running the phone. It's just chaos up there. So somebody needs to just organize a little bit, and then we wouldn't have any of these issues.
Yeah, so this movie starts talking about the Dead Sea Scrolls. Well, that idea of how they got possessed came from the Bible, the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Old Testament. But this is the part that doesn't make sense to me, or I couldn't figure out. Do both girls get possessed by different demons, or does one demon possess both of them?
Again, a good misstep from this movie.
Yep.
Because all they did was go, here are two girls. They're gone. They're possessed. Super Friends, activate. So there was that's one of the missteps.
Yeah.
So when we get into this part of it, you get to know Victor's daughter. Angela. Thank you. You get to know her. They're talking this, that. She's interested in her mom. She's looking through her stuff. You get to know Angela. And then in comes Catherine. Hi, I'm Catherine. I'm a girl. I'm possessed. Who's Catherine?
Yeah, we knew nothing about her.
Yeah.
Why.
There is nothing that's told to us about her. And I'll get more into that later in the movie. But so yeah, with Catherine, that's one of the missteps. Is this movie is only an hour and 51 minutes long. Now, some people don't like longer movies or anything, but you could have taken an easy minute and a half to 2 minutes to give this girl a story, to get us to care for her, because she's also being tortured. She is a possessed child, and we want to care about her. And we do in a sense, but we don't know her.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way it was with Reagan. You got to know her. You got to see her act, outside of being possessed. You got to see her doing things. I mean, we literally, Catherine, I think, has, somebody said 3 or 4 lines.
Yeah, I shouldn't say much.
And I don't even know if, the only reason we know Catherine is because other people say it. I don't even think her and Angela have a conversation where she's like, hey, Catherine, hey, Angela. It's just
into the woods, get possessed, and that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing we know about her is that her family goes to church and her family is religious. And you're right. It's hard to connect with a character when you don't have time to get to know that character. So that's definitely a big misstep that this movie took.
So and in that scene, you're missing 2 things. A, what are they doing? How did they learn this? Speaking from growing up, I grew up in a religious family. I went to the Church of Christ and to the Catholic Church every other weekend. So I was getting plenty of religion. So, but I knew about Ouija boards, but that's it. I knew I wasn't supposed to play with them. I didn't, but I didn't know any other weird. Now, granted, I grew up in the Stone Ages when internet didn't exist, but I didn't know any weird, hypnotism thing where you can call people. I mean, literally, it was Ouija board in that thing when you're supposed to be able to put 2 fingers under somebody, or stiff as a board.
Stiff as a board, light as a feather.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And we never got that to work either.
No.
So that's the only thing. So it's hard for me to believe that a young girl from a fairly religious family, I mean, the way they portray this family, they are almost overly religious in some points. How did she learn about this?
Mm-hmm.
Because all, the Ouija board was advertised on Saturday morning cartoons by Hasbro, so that's how I knew about a Ouija board. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
So how did she learn about this? And but
actually, no,
what possessed her to do this? Or, I mean, they could have easily put in a 30-second scene when she's in Sunday school and they tell her about, or they start talking about certain things. And, because I did grow up when I was really young. I mean, my Sunday schools were hardcore. I mean, they would tell you about how hell is bad. And it's like, if you try to drink the water, your tongue will boil. And it's like, oh God, I don't want to go there. So I can kind of see that if you would have taken that and just her in Sunday school and they're like, here are some things you do not want to try because you will contact Satan and this and that. So it at least started up some curiosity from her, maybe, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But not introducing her, giving her a story, and not telling us what they're doing, how they figured it out. I think that was a misstep. It didn't kill the movie, but it was like, wow, that happened fast.
Yeah.
Or who they got possessed by, if there's one demon, if they're 2 different demons. The only thing I know is from interviews where the director said it's not Pazuzu this time. And that's all I know. But I had to go outside the movie to get that.
See, that's the other thing. I mean, from the dialogue that I picked up in the movie, it was one demon possessing both of them at the same time. But they never, they didn't say the name of the demon. But that's the weird part when Chris comes back. It's, oh, she knows me.
Yeah, that's the thing.
So you've messed with this demon before, or the demon is you're trying to find Reagan and all this stuff. So that's where I started thinking, so wait, is this Pazuzu? But
Pazuzu's assistant.
It's his assistant.
Very inconsistent.
It's assistant. Yeah. So it's just, that was the other confusing part. It's like, is this the same demon that she's dealt with before? Because that's how she knows it. And that's how she knows all these things. Or is it like the demons have a catalog that they can look up and go, what's her name? Oh yeah. Okay. We got this. We can pull this. I mean, I don't know, but they didn't make it real clear on what was actually happening. And again, that starts off in the second half of the movie where it's just all of a sudden it's like, where are we going?
I don't think the movie even knows. I think it just did things and then they got done and they're like, oops, we should have spent longer on this script. Because what they're going to say next is that, Jesus went to hell for 3 days. And that's how they're explaining where the girls went for 3 days. So I'm sitting there like, Wait, are you saying that the girls' souls went to hell for 3 days, or
Yeah.
that when the girls are possessed, their souls are in hell? Because that's what it seemed like. But that, first of all, that whole thing about Jesus going to hell, that tradition is somewhat based on a mistranslation. Like there's
That's the
all these.
first time I've ever heard that. I'm going to point that out.
Oh,
Yes.
really?
You know, I
So
mean,
you
I'm not
didn't
saying
know
I'm a
that?
theologian in this, but
Okay.
I've never heard that. I just
He
figured he was hanging out.
It says in Revelation 1:18, it says Jesus went and took the keys of death and Hades. So he went to the underworld. The underworld's not the same place as hell. But
Right.
there is a verse, it's 1 Peter 3:19, where he goes and he preaches to the spirits in prison. You'll find out in 2 Peter 4, I think, that prison is Tartarus. It is like the lowest level of hell, and it is where these fallen angels are kept who tempted humans before the flood. So that ties to the book of Enoch. So there is this thing about Jesus visiting hell to tell these fallen angels that they're doomed. He's delivering them their judgment. But there's nothing about him going to hell.
Yeah, but Jesus is basically, an extension of God.
Yeah,
So
he can go
could
wherever he wants.
handle hell. There's no way a human soul went to hell and came back and was like, okay, I'm in school the next day. It's cool.
No.
He
No,
didn't go there and defeat the devil. That he defeated the devil metaphorically by taking away control of who lives and who dies.
Well,
Jesus
I'm just
has the
saying,
keys of
just
death.
being in hell, period. That's the absence of God.
Yeah,
So
that's a good point.
a soul being without God for a minute would equal a lifetime of torture, I would assume.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The fact that they were in there for allegedly 3 days, that would shut the brain down forever.
And
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right. And so the dad picked this up because they were gone for 3 days. He makes that connection of the Jesus story. And I think he's also saying something like that explains why their feet are burned and why their skin is.
They were walking around barefoot for 3
That's
days.
not
in the
what
woods.
demon possession is. Like
But that's the explanation. That's how he was able to piece it together. That they're
that's
possessed because they opened up something and they went to hell for 3 days and their feet are burnt and now they're back. And, that's how he got that idea.
This is what drove me
Okay.
nuts, though. They brought up the Dead Sea Scrolls as evidence of demon possession.
Correct.
So I get all excited, like, oh, yes, they're going to actually base this on, like, theology from the Dead Sea Scrolls. But then pretty quickly I realized I don't think they read these. And I don't know if they even read the Bible verses about possession. Because the whole thing about possession is a demon enters your body, takes you hostage, your soul is still in your body. It's
You're
not
stuck in there and-
transported to hell. And
Mhm.
I was just like scratching my head, like,
They even explained that in the original.
They needed a
because-
consultant.
Yeah,
Yep.
in the original movie, at the very end, when they're leaving the house, Chris meets up with the priest that survives, the friend of Father Damien, and they're talking. And she says she doesn't remember much. And Reagan walks over and says hi and everything like that. And then it shows her staring at the priest, and he's got his scarf on with the cross. And she remembers that. And she immediately walks over and just hugs him for no reason.
Yeah.
Because she remembers, oh, the cross. I remember a person with a cross helping me. This must be him. So she was obviously in there. She
Yeah.
wasn't in hell.
Yeah. But
So
that is,
they explain that. So use it.
yeah, no demon possession that I know of works like that. And I've studied it in different cultures. So it's okay, I think, if the movie wants to make its own rules, but it has to stick to them. And this one doesn't. And it deviates from the rules of the franchise.
That's the
And
thing. You can't
it cites
change
something as its source, Dead Sea Scrolls, Old Testament, but does not know what that source said at all.
Yeah.
So that's where I started to turn on the movie here a little bit, because
Mhm.
not only that, but doesn't that priest who wants to perform the exorcism originally, doesn't he say that he senses like two souls in the girl? So it's like one moment they said the soul is like the girl's still there. She's still there. And the other moment it's saying she's in hell. It's like it can't get its own story straight. Somebody else needed to look at this script.
I think it had something to do with, like they said, the heartbeats. They had separate heartbeats at one point, because that's why they had the heart monitors hooked up to them. And at one point they got 2 separate heartbeats. So it's like, oh, hey, they came back. They're in there now. Now I can talk to them as they're there, and I'm trying to pull them out with, and then the heartbeats went back on sync again. Like, oh, it's just one heartbeat again. Like it's just the demon now. It's not them. I don't know.
I don't think a little girl, if she got possessed, I don't think she'd go to hell if she died anyways, necessarily. Like an innocent kid. But this movie will say, I guess we'll get there.
We'll get there.
Yeah, I'm going to save it
ahead a little bit.
Yeah.
All right. Well, about this time, we do see Chris McNeil reappear. So what do you guys think of her appearance?
Pointless. Absolutely pointless. This was exactly what we feared it would be.
This one was, I saw a podcast. I apologize. I can't remember whose podcast it was. I wish I could give you a shout out. But basically, he started his podcast off with, the power of a cameo compels you.
Yeah.
And that's all it is. And truthfully, you've heard this in multiple podcasts if you listen to this. But yeah, if you watch the trailer, you see 90% of Ellen Burstyn scenes.
Yeah.
Because she's in and she's out.
She has a very long monologue. I was like, why isn't she having dialogue with the characters in the scene? Instead, it's like she's not looking at them and she's just delivering this long monologue. And I'm like,
yeah, it's almost like she just really just mailed that one in. Like, I just don't want to be here. So what do you want me to say? I'll say it. And this is what you're getting. I don't want to do this.
That scene should have been written as an interaction, though.
It should not. She shouldn't have been in it. Period. I don't think she should have been in it. Period. I think the best way that they could have done that, if you want to give a callback to the character, it's fine that she wrote the book. So you say, hey, I got this book that you might want to read. It might help you. And then like he gets the book, and then you see the name on the book, and it's like, oh, I know that name. But that's it. You don't need to bring her back. He travels to Florida or wherever it is that she lives to seek her out for this help. And she flat out says, like, I've studied exorcisms, but I can't perform exorcisms. And then the very next scene, what does she do? She tries to perform an exorcism.
I noticed that.
What is this?
And she's not even really performing an exorcism, because she's not reading the rites or the psalms that they use. She's just basically like trying to intimidate the demon. So I was like, well, if you're going to do an exorcism, you should probably, follow the protocol and not try to wing it.
See, this is what we talked about when we were talking about, when we did our Exorcist podcast. Doug brought it up that, if you're going to do an exorcism, make sure that you're qualified to do it. Like, I'm not the guy to do it. Doug is not the guy to do it.
She probably should have watched the podcast.
She should have watched the podcast.
Have watched our podcast, she would have been fine. She would have been like, oh, I better not do that and get my eyes stabbed out.
Right. If you're not qualified to do it, then don't do it. You're just going to make things worse. And she just went all blown in there, and then she gets her eyes stabbed out with a crucifix, and now she's blind and lays in a bed and does push-ups.
Well, this is where things get ridiculous, because the film is trying to put forward a good idea. Like, hey, some of religion has been like, I don't know, kind of locked down. This should be more diverse. Anyone should be able to do some of these things, but I don't know about an exorcism.
I don't think an exorcism qualifies as one of those things that anybody should be able to do.
But the script tries to put that forward.
Yeah.
But it portrays on screen that they're failing at it. But it's still saying the words that, oh, Jesus said anyone can do this. And I'm like, no. Jesus took those people around for 3 years and very hands-on trained them to do this.
Yeah. Like I could baptize somebody. Killed, yeah, I could perform a baptism. I can do that. But that's an exorcism is well beyond our pay grade.
Yeah, this is the one thing I'd say, like, this should be vetted. The exorcism.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, that's my take, and I think that's also. I think you guys probably agree. It's just I think it was just pointless to have her in this movie. Show her face on the cover of a book, and let's move on.
She probably didn't want to be in the movie so bad that she was like, "I'll be in it if you just kill me." Oh wait, she didn't even die.
No, she didn't even die.
Well, the whole story, and it's pretty popular. You've heard it around, but I'll say it again just in case somebody hasn't. So they approached Ellen Burstyn and said, "Hey, we want to do an Exorcist reboot, blah blah blah, or legacy sequel. Will you be in it? We would like to pay you X amount of money." And she said, "No." So they come back again. "How about we pay you double what we offered?" And she said, "No." Then they came back with triple, and she said, "No." Finally, she said, "If you really want me to be in this movie," I've heard two different stories. Either A, I'll take triple, or she didn't take the triple, and what she took was Blumhouse is now paying for her scholarship program. So she hands out scholarships to college students who are going into acting. And so now Blumhouse pays for that for her. So for her to come in and say the 15 minutes worth of dialogue she did, she made out pretty well. So good job, Ellen.
Yeah. Good job.
And you know what? She was great. I mean, it's Ellen Burstyn. I mean, woman's a legend, and she can walk in there and just go for 5 minutes. She'll do a good job at it. So again, even though her, it was kind of pointless. It was kind of weird. I mean, I know why they wanted to bring her in, because they're trying, and I didn't realize this at the time, but they are this is the first of a trilogy. So it sounds like they're bringing Linda Blair back. She's going to be the main focus in part 2 and 3, which I'll get into that later. But the main reason they brought her in was so they can bring a mother-daughter coming back together thing, and introduce Linda Blair, or Reagan, so she can take the last 2 movies home. So I understand why they did it. They just did it poorly.
Yeah.
Well, this is about the time when they approached the Catholic Church to try to get an exorcism approved. And they have one priest on their side who is pitching the idea and believes that an exorcism is needed. And it has been revealed at this point that the girls have secret knowledge. Like, they know the nurse was almost a nun once, and she had chosen this new name when she became a nun. She would be known by a new name, and she never told anyone what it was. Well, the demon knows. And there were, I think, by the end of the film, I counted 3 instances where the girls had secret knowledge that they shouldn't have had. Well, that is one of the potential indicators that the Catholic Church has in real life, either speaking a language they shouldn't know, knowledge they shouldn't know, unusual strength, all these things. This case fit the Catholic Church's requirements to have an exorcism performed. But the story, I think they wanted to just have the institution, they wanted to go for this more like diverse community type of theme, which I think is good, but I think you needed to have the church say no for a better reason than, oh, it fits our criteria, but we're going to say no for no apparent reason. And I have a suggested fix. My suggested fix is have them say, no, we know it looks like a possession, but we need a little bit more evidence. And the family's like, oh, we don't have time. Our daughters are going to die. Like, they're hurting themselves. Yeah. We can't wait anymore. So we have to do it. I think they could have fixed it then, instead of just like they're saying no for no apparent reason. And I think they were kind of taking a little bit of an anti-institutional route there.
Yeah, but what makes it worse, and this happens in almost every exorcism movie, and I understand, again, it's a stupid gripe because it's a movie. They're trying to creep people out. But I always go back to, and this is going to be a kind of a deep cut for a few people, but Drew's in on with me, the Psych episode where they did the exorcism kind of spoof.
The devil's in the upstairs bedroom.
Thank you.
Yep.
So anyway, in the movies, when a girl gets possessed, this happened in the original and it happened with these two. If a Catholic priest walks in and looks at them, he knows they are possessed or they're getting seriously abused by their parents, because these girls are just messed up. I mean, there's cuts and bruises and they're puking up weird stuff and they're talking in weird voices and everything like that. All the Catholic priest has to do is walk in and be like, "Who are you?" Okay,
You're
yes,
possessed.
you're possessed. Let's do this. But no, every movie they go through all this, and again, it's the way it should be. But you got to tone down the makeup. In the episode, the psych episode, the girl who claimed to be possessed, she did a very good acting job of being possessed, but she looked normal.
Yeah, but she
She
would
was
contort
sweaty.
her body, and
Yeah, she can move and do all that weird stuff. But again, you look at her and it's like, whoa, she's messed in the head, or maybe she's possessed.
Mhm.
Okay, you don't walk in and look at these two 12-year-old girls who are speaking in voices lower than any three of us, and Drew can sing low, and they're cut up and they're and spinning up stuff and everything like that. There is no reason for the Catholic Church to be like, nah.
Yeah.
So, but again, that's a stupid gripe because you want the movie to be scary. So yeah, you
Right.
gotta make them creepy.
I like the decentralizing faith theme a little bit. I mean, I started
needs to be
a
done.
brewery church. It's a discussion group at a brewery that talks about the Bible. Like, that's my form of decentralized church. Like, I think that's a cool idea to get more people involved. I just think they needed to, think through that and give better reasons in the script. But we're about to get to the exorcism itself. So
yeah.
what do you guys think about the actual exorcism?
Okay, so when they all assembled like the Avengers, you had the was she a Wiccan?
That's the only thing I could think
No,
of.
not
Again,
necessarily.
What is
I
she?
think she had something to do
herb
with the
girl?
earth.
The girl
Yeah,
with the
what do they
herbs?
call that? A root healer?
I have an
Is that what it is?
idea. I can tell you where I think it comes from. In Catholicism, there is still some herbal blessings. Like, sometimes people try to bless their house or protect it from spirits by spreading like rosemary or oil. I mean, that is a
Right.
thing, but that actually comes out of the Dead Sea Scrolls, but not in the way that the movie thinks it does, because there's a scroll, I can't remember which one it is in. The idea was that angels taught Noah. This is one of those books that's not in the Bible, right? Angels taught Noah how to use herbs for healing. Well, if you fast forward a little bit, the Jews, I mean, their belief was that whenever someone was sick, that demons were involved in that. So, like, demon possession and having the flu, for instance, were linked for them. Now, we don't do that. We don't think that way anymore. But what they would do is they'd come in there and they'd find a sick person and they'd perform an exorcism. And when that person got better, they'd be like, oh, well, the exorcism worked, right? So fast forward to Jesus. Jesus isn't using any of these herbs for his exorcisms. He's just commanding these demons leave people's bodies and they're suddenly better, right? So then people figured out, oh, like, the herbs are not, like, Jesus is the true exorcist. Maybe some of these other exorcisms were illegitimate. That was the view, right? So I did think it was interesting that they brought that in. Now,
Yeah.
I know people still believe in that. I know people around me still do some things with herbs. And I'm not going to say that God doesn't honor that, because maybe he looks at the intent of what you're doing. But I thought that might be one of those ideas that they pulled from the Dead Sea Scrolls, but they didn't quite understand it in
Right.
context. So
Right.
I don't know. It
That could be
was
so.
interesting.
Well, you had her, and you had the Pentecostal, and then you had a Catholic, or I guess
Failed
they're
nun.
Baptist. They're Baptist. You had the one who's going to be a Catholic, a nun, and she backed out, and then you had the non-believer. So you had these five, and like I said, at one point they meet up in the church, and they're all like in a line, and I think I mentioned something like, hey, look at this. It's like the dream team of exorcists. And Doug's like, oh, he goes, what they should have done with that scene is get some real, kicking rock music behind them as they're walking out,
Play
just
Creed.
Creed. Play some Dogs wide open.
Is that? Wait, am I even singing the right one?
So they go to this exorcist and they bolt these chairs to the floor and they strap one girl. Wasn't she in like an institute and they had to like get her out to go bring her to this house and nail, and strap her to a chair?
Yeah.
So they strap him to this chair. and all the people are gonna gather around, and we're gonna do this together. And the Catholic the priest won't go in and do this because he hasn't been given permission. So he gives it to the neighbor who is going to be a nun, and here's this and here's this, and you do this. And
I dug it.
Yeah,
I loved every second of that part.
It was
I know it's kind of weird. Yeah, I'm taking this really messed up girl who why hasn't Child Protective Services shown up yet? But we're gonna, that's a little bit weird. But I love the fact of this team up. Yeah. It's almost like Nightmare on Elm Street 3, right? It's we're gonna bring all our powers together, because now it's twice as bad because you got two girls that are possessed. So, and it's not just a Catholic family, or actually in the original, they weren't even churchgoers, but it's not just about the Catholics anymore. The Catholics are in part of it, but I think it's a good message, because I grew up in a church that believed everyone else was going to hell. I won't get too deep into that, but it took me a while to get past that. Even when I moved to Indianapolis, I joined Nathan's church, and it was a Methodist church, and I struggled with it a little bit, because it's like, oh, this isn't a Christian church. But yeah, it was. It took a little bit there, and then my eyes opened up. And it's like, just because you believe something different, or you pray differently, or you take your communion differently, or you play with snakes differently, doesn't mean you're wrong. Doesn't mean I'm right, but at least we're moving in the right direction. There's a great quote from a famous person. I have no idea, but I saw it on an episode of Sports Night, where the guy's praying. He's like, God, I may not always make the right decisions, but the fact that I want to, I think makes you happy. That's what it is. It's like, all these people, maybe the herb thing isn't right, but I think she's doing the right thing. Yeah. And I don't want to believe that God would be like, well, you played with herbs, and actually this is the right religion, so the rest of you are going. No, we're all doing positive, good work in most cases when it comes to religion and everything like that. In most cases, I'm pointing that out. But, that's what I liked about it, was like, it doesn't have to be a Catholic priest. It's, you've got somebody who believes in the Catholicism religion very strongly, and that's great. And then you got, like you said, the Pentecostal, and maybe the Baptist, and then the herb lady. Again, I apologize and don't want to offend anybody who is a part of that religion. We probably should have looked that up. Yeah, I thought that was really, really cool. And that's when I got excited again. The whole Chris McNeil thing was like, they struggled there, but okay, here we go. We're going back up. This is going to get cool. Let's bring in all the religions. It's, it's like I said, a Super Friends worth of exorcists. And I was excited, and then stuff happened, but at that point I was excited. So again, I like that idea. I really like that idea of the story.
Yeah, I liked that too. I just felt like the film isn't actually, they're not going to let them succeed. And so then they're going to look like their community effort failed by the end of this. But it was a cool idea. I don't know, they just didn't think through the story well enough. I did think. Oh, go ahead, Drew.
Well, I was just going to say, and make this comparison with another film that the director did, the Halloween trilogy, where he kind of had that same thing of the community rallies together to bring down Michael Myers, and they fail. They don't do it. None of them do it. But they had this strong bond of, if we all work together, we're going to succeed. And they didn't. And then, like, the same thing happened in this movie. They're all banding together to do this. And I mean, they fail. They do.
And again, I'm good with that. Especially now knowing it's a trilogy.
Yeah,
at the time we thought it was one movie.
Yeah, that's how it ended. I was like, "Ow, that's dark."
Yeah, it's like, what?
That's rough. But now that I know it's a trilogy, it's like, ooh, because you could really go some cool directions with that trilogy, especially with the parents who lost their kid.
Yeah, which,
but
yeah.
yeah. So yeah, I, again, didn't mean to step on your story.
Oh, no,
Keep
no, no, no.
going.
That was fine.
I loved the fact that that now that I know it's a trilogy, that this ended the way it did.
Yeah.
Because you can't win and then continue,
Right.
know, unless you can. I mean, you can.
Well, in a way, they saved one and another one, so
yeah.
it wasn't like a complete loss, but it's almost like, did they actually save Angela, or was,
Again,
because the demon kept his word in a way when he said you have to choose, one girl lives, one girl dies, you're going to choose who does it, and in a way the demon kept his word. One girl dies, one girl lived. And I don't know if the people doing the exorcism had absolutely anything to do with that.
No, but
I don't know if they did, especially like, the Catholic priest. The Catholic priest.
Well, before we get too deep into that,
we'll stop that part.
What I want to talk about was the exorcism. That's when things got a little bit rough.
Yeah.
So
during the actual exorcism part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it started off good, and things going crazy, and they're praying and everything like that.
Yeah.
And then it went into fantasy, because as soon as the girls started spitting up smoke, and then the herb lady's like, I got this. And then she brings out her own Lost monster. She brought out the monster from Lost, basically. And then, they had a smoke fight, and it was like, oh, that's not good.
Yeah.
Basically, that's when I think they hit I've got two paradoxes I'm going to explain throughout this. The first one is the House on Haunted Hill paradox, movie from 1999. And it was a remake and everything. But if you go back and watch that movie, the first 3/4 of that movie is pretty good. I mean, it's got a handful of low A, high B actors in it, but it's creepy and it's got a good story going on. There's some weird stuff happening. And then it feels like they get to this point in the movie and they're like, okay, so we're going to do this scene next, and we got to do this. And the guy's like, oh, we got $12 left. Oh, crap. What can you do with $12? I can make a big cloud of smoke that kills everyone.
Yeah, some of these effects were a little shoddy.
So that's what it felt like was, I understand the middle part with Chris, that the whole thing was weird, stupid. Just ignoring that. But from the beginning of the movie, the way it was shot, and we didn't talk about it much, but the whole lost children thing, that was kind of cool. They extended that for a decent amount of time. And you were feeling for the parents and the people in the community and everything like that. That was done well. And then the girls kind of turning, that was done well.
Yeah, their progression into it was very creepy.
Yeah. And then the power, the Super Friends unite. This is getting cool. And then it was like they ran out of money. They could have done a lot of cool stuff, because in the best 2 Exorcist movies, 1 and 3, when the Catholic priest arrives, the demon is frightened.
Yes.
Right? In the original one, when Father Marin showed up, it shows a close up of Reagan's eyes, and you can just see him. There's fear in those eyes. And then in part 3, when George C. Scott is sitting there, fighting with the priest or the demon and everything like that, and that door opens and the Catholic priest is sitting there, that demon freaks out. So that's what exorcist movies are. Is you bring in. Even if you want to do this whole team up thing, that's great. But when the Catholic priest shows up, it's about to go down. That's the way it's supposed to happen.
Yeah.
And the Catholic priest showed up and said 6 words and immediately got ripped and,
his head gets snapped around.
Yeah, get snapped and dead. And it's like, oh, well, that was rough. I mean, come on. That was supposed to be the hero moment.
Yeah.
And it was a punk moment.
I don't think they wanted to make the Catholic Church or the institutional church of any kind the hero based on that scene, based on them denying the exorcism, even though it fit their criteria. And Chris McNeil drop that line about
The patriarch.
the damn patriarchy. And
Hmm.
so I got the impression, okay, I understand you want to go for the neighborhood community religion theme, which I think is cool. That actually is kind of like
Very
the
cool.
early church. So I'm not opposed to that, but like I do think they had a bone to pick maybe with the Catholic Church or something, which that is a mistake to me for this franchise in a way. Like
absolutely.
Yeah.
you can criticize certain things they've done. They're people too, but think about this. This whole franchise is rooted in the Catholic faith. Like they set up their whole theology. Exorcist 2 Heretic ignores it. Look what happened to that movie. But
Mhm.
even Dominion, which was a terrible movie with terrible effects, had a solid faith story and theology behind it. But this movie is basically like taking a dump on the historic theology of the franchise. And so I have to question,
Much.
like, what, did you give this movie to the right person? Because they could have extended the approach of this movie to be that community thing without like turning on the history of the franchise, if that makes sense.
Right. No. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, it is a little bit of a throwback to the original because again, with all this stuff happening, he was still skeptical. He
Mhm.
still wasn't 100% sure. It wasn't until Father Marin showed up and was like, "No, yep, Pazuzu, I'm in,
Yeah.
hot tag." So yeah, you know, I can understand again throwing that in there, and again, they should have said we need more evidence instead of just flat out, yeah, you girls are speaking in tongues and with low voices and are completely ripped up. No. But yeah,
Yeah, they
I don't
didn't
have a problem with that. But again, they didn't resolve it. They
Yeah.
tried to, and then it was like, well, that didn't do anything.
Like I'm not offended or anything. I just think,
Yeah.
okay, I can see that you really wanted to take this route, and you could have done this better. But I'll
And,
tell you
you
what
know,
oh, go ahead.
I was going to say that's kind of the age we're in. You know, trying to say that you don't have to be religious, and I'm not saying you have to or anything like that. But a lot of people do talk down about it and everything like that. But again, like you said, that's what this movie is based on. This is pure religion. This is a demon from hell possessing a body. Therefore, if there is a hell, there has to be a heaven. That
Mhm.
has to win. Heaven has to win. So you have to have a positive religious twist in there somewhere. You can't just have to
Oh, I
make this
think
movie good and to make the fans of this movie happy.
yeah, you got to honor the
Because-
franchise a little
Yeah,
bit.
exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
I
You
don't
know,
feel like they
it's-
did that.
It's like making episodes 7, 8, and 9 and having the Jedis use laser guns instead of laser swords. Basically,
Well, I'll tell you
You're
something that I did
changing
like.
everything.
I did like how they present the demons telling the parents they have to make a choice of which girl lives and which girl dies. And
Mhm.
the reason I like that was because if you think about this, this is a retelling of Genesis chapter 3. Adam and Eve being tempted in the Garden of Eden to take from the tree of knowledge. They put the people in this situation. The only problem is, like, if they had an expert in that room, someone who had seen an exorcism before or been trained in it, they would have immediately taken the parents out of the room and been
Yeah.
like, one, you're too close to this. Maybe they would have let Victor in there because he kept his cool. But
Catherine's
Catherine's
dad had no business being
he
in
was
that room.
shock. Yeah, he was in shock the whole time. He
Yeah.
was in no psychological state to even be there.
Yeah.
So
Well, again,
if they
that's
were
what
s-
happens when amateurs step
well,
up and do
the
stuff.
thing.
Yeah.
Like because they made that choice, one girl died. Where an expert, I mean, Father Marin basically says in the first film, when the demon's trying to talk to them, he tells Father Karras, like, don't listen to it. Like, you know that if a demon is trying to make a deal with you, not to take it, because
Right.
like in the hierarchy, God's higher than the demon. So, you know, an expert would have been like, no, appeal to God, trust God. So, I mean, it is interesting though to think about in terms of Genesis chapter 3, because then when the dad does rush in and say, no, Catherine, I choose Catherine, he's essentially taking the fruit from the tree of knowledge. So you could call this the fall of man, the Exorcist version. So I like it, but at the same time, that hurt their idea that it takes all of us to do this because, well, you guys failed. Like,
Yeah.
I wanted to see the community succeed, but like you said, I didn't think about, oh, there's 2 more movies coming. Well, maybe.
Well, at the time we didn't realize that until after we had seen it.
Right.
Now, when that part where they're saying you have to choose, one girl lives, one girl dies, choose. And, you know, Angela is telling Dad, choose me. And of course, Catherine's saying, choose me. And apparently the devil was saying whoever you choose is going to die, but everyone in the room thought whoever you choose will live.
Yeah, that's
I never got that. Mine was immediately like, whoever you choose is dying. Were you that way, or did you think whoever they choose will live?
I thought they were choosing who lives.
I thought immediately choose who die, because if you listen to like Angela when she's telling her dad, you didn't want me. You chose Mom. You didn't choose me. So you never wanted me. So choose. And then she starts saying, choose me, choose me. And that right there is the hint at saying, choose me and kill me, because you didn't want me anyway. That's the way I took it. So it was kind of like right there, like whoever they choose dies. So
good catch.
Yeah. So when the dad yells, Catherine, I choose you, I was thinking, well, you just okay. Well, are you doing it? My thought was when he says, Catherine, I choose Catherine, he's doing that to put her out of misery. Like he's sacrificing her because I can't watch my daughter look like this, act like this, talk like this. She's suffering. She's in pain. Just take her and let's just be done with this. That's how I took it. And then I heard somebody off screen yell, he tricked us. And I'm like, did he? Because I thought he was pretty clear when he said, choose. choose who's going to die. You think that's how he would work anyway.
Well, and I thought Angela was saying, like, choose who you should have chosen in the first place. You didn't choose me last time. Like, fix this.
No, I took it as choose me and kill me because you didn't want me to begin with.
But a cool part of
go ahead.
I was
gonna say that's how I took it. So when they said he tricked us, that was a little confusing for me because I'm like, nah, I think that's the way I took it from initially when he said choose. So I didn't know how you guys looked at it.
Yeah. I kind of like that scene because I feel that's when Victor got his faith.
Yeah.
Truly got his faith because he was skeptical all the way through it. He was doing different things. He wasn't too crazy about the religious people and everything like that. But when given that choice, he straight up, the mom of Catherine said, I'm not going to choose. And he looked straight at her and she said, I'm not going to choose either.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's just like, okay, he gets it now. He's there. He's hit his part of, where he needed to be in the movie. He's hit that. So, good for that and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, then the inevitable happens. Catherine's dad said, I choose her. And then she dies. And again, that's when not building up Catherine's character hurt.
Yeah.
Because when she died, it was, again, kind of dark. And it was done very well when she's getting pulled down by the hands and everything. That was creepy. But anyway, yeah, when that happened, I was like, oh, man, that's creepy. That's bad. But I wasn't like, the little girl died. That wasn't the first thing, which that should have been the first thing I thought of.
They should have given equal time to both girls and to get to know both of them.
And
right.
What's
impact.
So sad. I don't know if you guys remember this from the trailer. There is a great line from Catherine while she's possessed and tied to that chair where she just rips up and she's like, I don't want to go to hell.
Yeah, I noticed that. They cut it.
They didn't put that in the movie.
She said, I don't want to die. In the movie.
Yeah, okay. Maybe that. But yeah, in the trailer, she says, I don't want to go to hell.
Yeah, they cut that out.
And it was like, oh, that's such a powerful, that if they kept that in there, that would have at least taken a little bit further. So again, it was just like they did not build her up enough for us to care.
Right.
And this movie was under 2 hours. You could have given her 2 minutes.
Yep.
Just 2 minutes of a character development other than being baptized, because we knew she was religious. We need to know her as a person.
Right.
So that was another misstep that I was like, wish they would have done that a little bit better.
And I'm still shocked that they actually said that she went to hell or showed that.
Yeah, they
Because
showed her
I'm
being
still
drugged down, and
I'm still scratching my
Again,
head like a
that's
little girl being possessed.
yeah,
Like, would
especially
she really go? I don't think she'd go to
and she was
hell.
baptized.
Yeah, I
So again, I think that has to do with the writers not being religious.
yeah, they needed a
If I would-
consultant, especially if they were going to tout things like the Dead Sea Scrolls. And as we said earlier, when they mentioned those scriptures, like they didn't really know how to handle those scriptures.
Right.
The Bible's complicated. It seems simple, but when you get into there are things that are simple about it, but when you get into demons, it's not simple at all. So,
Yep.
yeah.
well, did you feel like the movie gave a satisfying answer to the question, why does evil exist? Because they're going to bring that up again. The nurse is going to talk about that. Do you think the film made a good case for why evil exists?
Not really.
I think they could have done more.
Yeah.
Again, the original movie, there were a lot of great conversations about evil and being possessed and God. And, there were that wasn't, and again, it's not, the original movie wasn't a go religion movie. It's a straight up horror movie with religious undertones.
Right.
And that's the way it should be. And this movie was a horror movie based on a horror movie with religious undertones. And that's not what it should have been. It should have been a horror movie with religious undertones. And that's again another misstep. I think they could have done a little bit better, do a little bit more research, explain why this is happening. Because again, we don't know why all this is happening. The original movie, it was a girl playing with something she shouldn't have played with. Go. And that is a just straight up great horror movie. And then they extended it on, so you got to come up with crazy and weird theories and everything like that. But they didn't. That's where they kind of messed up with this.
Yeah, I mean, the two girls just looking at a necklace, watching a necklace, and saying, "All right, try to see if you can hear your mom," and the next thing you know, they're gone for 3 days. Unless they were sitting in the portal to hell, which is what that little thing was. I mean, that's the only explanation, because you're right. They don't explain how what they were doing open up them to be possessed, unless, and the only other thing I can think of, and I brought this up to Doug when we watched it, is at the beginning when they're putting those blessings on her, was they actually putting some kind of a curse on her, on the baby, when they were blessing it. That's the one thing. That's how I thought she was going to become possessed, because of something that happened in Haiti. But
that's a good question.
And they could call back to that.
But then how does that have anything to do with Catherine?
Yeah.
So it doesn't
It's
make.
got to be that they tried to contact the dead, and I have to somewhat step over into my biblical knowledge to feel satisfied, because what happened, I think they tried to contact Angela's mom, on the other side, and they met a demon that they didn't expect to meet instead of her mom. Now that I think about it, I guess the movie kind of explained that, but I'm also pulling from my knowledge of religion to understand what happened.
Yeah,
and I still don't know how many demons there were.
No, 1, 2, 5.
Was. Yeah,
right.
Well, they're trying. They messed this up all the way back in the early '80s when they did part 2. Because what it sounds like they're trying to do is this whole arc about Pazuzu, and part 2 tried to explain Pazuzu and didn't make any sense. I think they're trying to do a Pazuzu tie-in. The problem is, how do you bring that in when you don't introduce Reagan to begin with? So how are all these people connected? That's where the rough part happens. And 2, moving forward, the worst part about it is with legacy sequels, you want the hero to show up and beat the demon. So in the Halloween movies, they got Jamie Lee Curtis. When they did Tron Legacy, they brought back Jeff Bridges.
Mm-hmm.
He was the hero in the original Tron movie. The original heroes in the original movie are dead. One was choked out by Reagan. The other one jumped out the window and fell down the stairs and then got shot by the cop in part 3. As much as Reagan suffered and everything like that, she was not the hero. Chris was not the hero. They were the victims
Yeah.
They don't have the power to beat demons. It was the Catholic priest's sacrifice that defeated evil. So you can't continue with the legacy story when the heroes died 50 years ago.
Right.
You know what this is kind of like? They mentioned the Dead Sea Scrolls. Well, there are other, like Canaanite literature, where the pagan gods, right?
Mhm.
Well, they believed that sometimes you had to sacrifice a member of your family. This is where child sacrifice came from, to a demon, and then that demon would let the rest of your family live, right? So if you look at this community here, they essentially sacrifice one of the girls so that the rest of them and the other girl can live. So that's kind of interesting.
Right. Or that's what we think. I mean, that's the one issue is, again, we were watching this movie as a standalone movie and it was after we found out, and again, that was our fault for not doing the studying, but if we would have watched it knowing it was a trilogy, then maybe you could look at it as, okay, is she cured?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. When Reagan was possessed in the original movie, Reagan would come back every once in a while and talk and be there. So maybe the demon's dormant, maybe it's hiding. We don't know. So all we know is that unfortunately the other little girl died. But was there a reason for that? I mean, you could make a good story with the parents being jealous and angry that Angela lived, but Catherine died. So now they turn on God. And who knows, maybe you got your super friends of priests over here. Maybe they're going to start the evil. That would be really bad. Don't do that. But what I'm saying is, as a standalone movie, it struggles pretty bad. But if they can take the story and move it somewhere good and make sense of everything that happened and kind of explain, it may not be as bad as we think.
Right.
And two, I again, my second paradox, this is the Ghostbusters 2 paradox, I feel. Because when you have a movie that's as perfect as The Exorcist was or Ghostbusters was, and you try to make a sequel, it's never going to stand up.
Right.
Okay. If you can push it out of your mind, push the original out of your mind and watch Ghostbusters 2, that is a hilarious movie. It is funnier than most movies out there. The problem is Ghostbusters, the original, was so good and on such a high pedestal that when you came back, you were expecting Ghostbusters and you got part 2. And it's like, it wasn't as good. It's almost impossible to make it as good. I mean, there are very few, you got Empire, you got Godfather Part 2. There are very few sequels that can stand up to and or be better than the original. And in most cases, when you have a movie as good as Ghostbusters or The Exorcist, and they bring you that second one, that is a solid movie, you get upset because it's like, it wasn't as good as the first. And it's rarely going to be.
Right.
So yeah, when people walk into this, they're thinking, yes, after 50 years, we're finally going to get our sequel. And then it was like, it wasn't as good as no. There are very few movies that are as good as the original. I mean, it's just that movie was right on the edge of perfect. And doesn't matter what you do for part 2, it's not going to hold up.
Right.
So I think a lot of the hate is just because it wasn't as good as the original. And unfortunately, it's just never going to be.
Right.
I do have my final qualm with the movie is sort of in the wrap-up scene. I found this hilarious. We talked about the inconsistent storyline and the inconsistent theology of the movie. And I'm fine if the movie is not theologically accurate. I just want it to follow its own rules, right? Present some movie rules and then stick to them. So at the end, the nurse is saying, for her reason, her explanation of evil, she's like, we just have to cling to whatever God or gods or people in our lives bring us life. Now, earlier in the movie, they cited the Dead Sea Scrolls. And in the Dead Sea Scrolls, the gods, she mentions connecting with other gods. The gods are the fallen angels. So connecting with them is how people got possessed. Demon possession started in the first place. So we get to the end of the movie and basically she's telling the audience, do the thing that got people possessed. And the girls, like, they're trying to connect with Angela's dead mom. They're trying to cling to life. Do the thing that got the girls possessed. I'm like, someone needed to look at this script.
I missed that part. She was actually saying people should try to talk to.
Well, she didn't mean that. I think they were trying to include all different groups who would be watching this movie, right? And so they try to include other religions by saying, if you worship God or other gods, or just cling to them, but not understanding that in the Dead Sea Scrolls, the other gods are the fallen angels that started demon possession. so it's just one of those things where it's like, oh man, you guys really needed a consultant here.
Yeah, a little research would have worked.
Yeah. Well, tell me if you guys recommend this movie and where you would rank it in the franchise.
Okay, it's the third best Exorcist movie. All right, it's better than 2. It's better than Beginnings and Dominion. It wasn't a great movie by any means, but it wasn't as horrible as I think that people are like making it out to be. It definitely has its flaws. It definitely gets a little funky in some areas. But if you just watch it as a horror movie, I think it's got enough there to keep you entertained. It's got enough creep outs. It's got enough jump scares. It's got enough intrigue to, like I said, if you forget it's an Exorcist movie and just, I'm here to watch a horror movie and be creeped out and entertained for 2 hours, I think it does that job. So, I mean, it's worth the watch. I wouldn't say, don't waste your time. I think it's worth the watch. Just don't have super high expectations and you might enjoy it.
And I think that's why I didn't have high expectations. I mean, like I said, right before they started the movie, I looked at Drew and said, I hope this doesn't suck. That was my expectation. Yeah. So, but like I said, they shot the movie like an Exorcist movie. They killed it on that. Yeah. Okay, perfect. Good job. Great start of the movie. All right. I like the story. I like, you have to make a choice. And then it jumps 13 years into the future. And, it's like, whoa, so you got the backstory, the girls disappearing, that was a good 30 minutes of the movie, I want to say, or at least 15. It felt longer. And it wasn't boring. It wasn't bad. I was worried about the girls because, as the audience member, they're possessed, but it's like, nah, and they're missing. Geez, what's going on? What are they doing? What's happening? How is this going to be? So that was done really well. Then them turning, that was, Catherine walking down the middle of church.
Oh, yeah.
That was creepy.
It was.
That was good. The whole light thing with the dad brushing the teeth and the girl keeps.
Oh, yeah.
Now, again, going to reality, what person wouldn't freak out when the light goes and your daughter's standing right in front of you? How did that happen?
Yeah.
He's just like, oh, that was weird.
I think I told Doug, if my daughter did that to me, that's the minute we get in the car and we're like going to a hospital. And you're staying here for the night and I'm going back home because I'm not dealing with that.
But, so there's, but still, that's nitpicking. That was creepy. That was good. The girls, I said the changing, the possession, that was done well. I think it started sliding when Chris came in. Again, Ellen Burstyn, great actress. She was good. Even though it's, Drew said it felt like she was phoning in her lines, she was still the best actor on the screen.
Yeah.
Because she is that good, So she wasn't boring. It was just unnecessary.
Yeah.
Except for to bring in Reagan. So if you kind of numb your mind, get past that, the whole Super Friends thing was kind of cool up until the possession. And again, they could have kept another 3 or 4 minutes on top of that. Go a little bit deeper. Let's figure out which religion is doing what, because everyone was praying different ways. So, maybe go a little bit deeper into that. Why are they, what prayer are they using? Obviously the Catholics use, I think you said
Psalm 91
scriptures from Psalms. What do the Pentecostals use? Would they, and again, I don't know religions like you do, but Pentecostals, are they the dancing?
Yeah.
religion that they always put heavy metal to. And
Yeah,
as much as I respect religions, that is the funniest thing out on the internet.
When they drop drop a mad beat at church.
I would love to see something like that. Don't just say, oh, we have these different religions. If you're going to bring these religions in, represent their religions. Man, get the music going, have a beat going. They're sitting there praying and doing that dance and everything like that. And then you got the Baptists, I know they're on their knees most of the time. And so, that priest should have been down on his knees, hands up, doing that. If they would have done that a little bit more too, even in failure, that would have made the whole exorcism kind of cooler, because they could have separated each place and show their strengths, show their beliefs and everything. Would have made the story a little bit more interesting and helped with the growth of Victor's character. Him seeing these people who believe different things, who may not believe the same thing the person right next to him is. When it comes down to it, it's good versus evil. And that's what was kind of cool. And if they would have shown that a little bit better, that would have been cool. And then, yeah, like you said, the ending was half and half. Again, if we would have known Catherine, it would have been better. We would have felt more. But yeah, like Drew said, it's a decent horror movie. I mean, there's 10 billion horror movies out there. This is going to be on the top tier of it. Mm-hmm. I'm going to say it because, it was a solid movie, I felt. And like, if you watch or you follow the channel, The Exorcist is my second favorite movie of all time. You would think I would be the most upset about this, but I wasn't. I thought, again, they missed a couple things, I feel, but for an Exorcist movie, if it had to be done, they could have done a lot worse, I believe. So I did not feel like I wasted my money. And truthfully, I will watch that again, especially knowing it's going to be a sequel. And I would love to see some deleted scenes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because there's...
Rank it.
Rank it?
Yeah.
3. I agree with you 100%. Third best. Ooh. Because obviously the original is number 1.
Yep.
Part 3 was done very well. Strong number 2. This, you got 1, you got 2. 3 is a little bit further down. It's not anywhere close as good as 2. But again, I didn't think it was bad. How about you, man? Nathan? I think you have a different opinion.
Yeah, I am going to not recommend the movie because I don't think they could get their own universe rules straight, and they were inconsistent with the lore of the franchise and the lore that they set up in this movie. So I could throw out all my knowledge of religion, and I still think that they made an incoherent plot. And I do think they set out to say it takes all of us, and then shot themselves in the foot with how the film ended. Now, I might decide I'm wrong about that if the sequel picks up that thread and does something with it. So I am kind of lightening up on that opinion a little bit as we talk about this. But yeah, I thought the movie was going to be like super terrifying because the TV spots running the week before the movie came out, I was watching football, and it's like every commercial break there's this trailer that was real quick cuts from this movie, and it looked terrifying, and I was like almost dreading going to see it, like, oh, how disturbing is this going to be? But I didn't find myself scared, or I just didn't find it as disturbing as the trailer. And I think
I'll agree with you on that.
Yeah.
I'm not a big jump scare guy. I didn't jump on any of the jump scares.
The snake?
I jumped then.
I jumped at the snake.
Yeah. I kind of looked over you. I was like, because he's reaching down and picking up a rock. Of course, there's going to be something underneath there. Why would they film that?
That could be a tie to Genesis 3, the serpent. Because later,
it very well could be.
Tempting. The demon represents
and maybe
the
they'll
serpent.
explain that. I mean, you got the serpent, you got the decision at the end. They made the wrong decision, obviously. So, again, but they should have portrayed that if that's how they were going to go.
Yeah.
A. B, if that's the way they're going to go, then they're kind of implying they're going up against Satan, because, again, the way they should, well, I mean, I'm not saying it was perfect, but something you guys should check out is the Exorcist TV show. The first season ties in to the original, and it was done pretty good. I was pretty satisfied with the TV show, and that's why I continue watching season 2. I enjoyed season 2 as well. I mean, it died after season 2, but I thought it was pretty good. But yeah, obviously they're trying to do the Reagan beats Pazuzu thing. The problem was there was very little talk of Reagan, no talk of Pazuzu, because other than, no, this isn't Pazuzu, even though they so apparently the demons take pictures and hand them around at the bar or something. You see this lady, get her, stab her eyes out with a crucifix or something. And how that didn't kill her.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, she's 80-plus-year-old woman who just got stabbed with a pretty thick crucifix in both eye sockets.
Yep, she'd be dead. That'd go into her brain.
Yeah.
I would say you would think as much as that was sticking out, it would have hit the brain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But 2, all that was there was Victor, right?
Yeah, he just came up and...
So, what could he do for bleeding eyeballs? I mean, you can't cut off an artery to stop the bleeding.
No.
Without choking her to death. So it's like, what could he have done to help her live until the ambulance got there within 3 to 7 minutes later, if you're lucky?
Yeah.
That was part of the misstep. That's the part you can just kind of numb out and just enjoy the wackiness.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to say not recommend. I might reevaluate after I see a sequel. I might reevaluate where I rank it too after a sequel, because I know that objectively it's the 3rd best movie in the Exorcist franchise. But I enjoyed the terrible Heretic and the terrible Dominion. They're both awful, but the Heretic is such a weird failure. Like, it's just like, what were these guys doing that you can kind of laugh at?
The Heretic wasn't a part of the Exorcist.
No. The Heretic belongs on riff tracks.
I'm hoping that they don't try to integrate everything from the sequels. Meaning, I don't want to see a strobe light in part 2 or 3 or whatever they're calling it. Well, this one was called Believer, then it's
Deceiver,
and then
I don't know what
the
next
third one was something but it was weird. It was like not a real word.
Believer, Deceiver, and Retriever. The Cleaver.
Well, I guess
Leave
we'll
it
be
to
back
Beaver.
to talk
The
about those
Weaver.
when they come out.
Leave it to Beaver.
Oh, absolutely.
So.
Now, I'm looking forward to see what they do. I'm not saying I'm excited to see the movie because I love this one, but I'm curious to see if they can make up for it.
Yeah.
Because again, you give me 6 minutes of film to add to this movie, and I think I can fix it and skip the Chris McNeil part, or change that around a little. But yeah, just like I said, just a few little things, and this movie turns from, in my opinion, average to an above average sequel. Because I think they had the formula. They just, a little bit too much of this, a little bit less of this, and I think it could have been something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So yeah, I say check it out. Maybe catch a matinee, catch it at the rerun theater if they still have those nowadays. I have no idea, or just wait for a video. I mean, heck, movies come out on video like a month after they hit the theaters anyhow.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I would suggest checking it out. It's not bad.
Well, guys, if you want some weird movie merch, check the links in the description. I put some stuff there, and I guess we'll see you next time.